the Sinai Desert, the mid-1970s. Archaeologists dig at a lonely hilltop, far from any city. Inside a ruined building, they find broken storage jars. On the clay, an old Hebrew blessing. I bless you by Yahweh of Samaria, and by his Asherah. Yahweh and his Asherah. The God of Israel, paired with a name, Asherah. The find made headlines. Some said, God had a wife. The evidence is real. The debate is real. Scholars still argue what that word means. But that headline is not the real story. The real story is bigger, older, and closer to the heart. So let us ask the questions that matter. What was Asherah? How did she shape Israel's faith? Why did her worship make God so angry? And did she shape the other goddesses of the ancient world? Asherah did not begin in Israel. She was already ancient. Long before Israel, the Canaanites had many gods. At the head sat El, the old father of the gods. Beside him sat his wife. Her name was Atharat. In Hebrew, that name becomes Asherah. She was the mother of the gods, the queen of the divine family. They called her the lady who walks on the sea. She was a creator, a matriarch, a maker of destiny. In the old myths, even the storm god needed her favor. When he wanted a place in the divine family, she spoke for him. Her oldest signs were the lion and the tree. The lion showed her power. The tree showed her life. A sacred tree, always green, always giving. That tree would follow her everywhere. Remember it. When Israel settled in Canaan, Asherah was already there, already in the songs, already in the soil. And her worship took root at every level. We see it in the desert jars, Yahweh and his Asherah. We see it in a tomb in Judah, a blessing for a dead man, by Yahweh and his Asherah. Now, what did people mean by that word? Some scholars say it names the goddess herself. Others say it names her symbol, a sacred pole, a wooden tree beside the altar. The grammar is debated, but this much is plain. The two were tangled together. You could not raise her pole without raising her shadow, and the pole was everywhere. It stood beside altars. It stood on the high places. A clay stand from Tanakh shows her tree, flanked by lions. In ordinary homes, families kept small clay figures, female forms held in the hand, by the hearth, by the bed, folk charms, for childbirth, for milk, for safety in the dark. Even in the temple in Jerusalem, women once wove cloth for her symbol. From the kitchen to the king's house, she was woven in. This was not a fringe cult. This was everyday life. And that is exactly why it was so dangerous. So we reach the hard question. Why was God so angry? It was not because he feared a piece of wood. It was because of what the wood was doing to his people. Remember the first command. You shall have no other gods before me. The Lord had bound himself to Israel by covenant, like a marriage. He had carried them out of slavery. He had fed them in the desert. He had given them a name, a home, and a future. In return, he asked for their whole heart. And Asherah offered a different deal. She offered a God you could manage, a God you could feed, clothe, and carry home. A system for the harvest, a charm for the womb, a power you could handle on your own terms. That is the lie at the root of every idol. That God is a thing to be used, not a person to be loved. But the living God cannot be carried. He carries you. He cannot be managed. He can only be trusted. So, worshipping the Asherah was not a mere matter of taste. It was turning from the one who saved them into something that could not save. The pole could be cut down. It could be burned. It could be ground to dust. Gideon cut one apart. Hezekiah pulled one out. Josiah burned the great one to ash. A thing that can be ground to dust cannot rescue anyone. But here is what the anger really was. It was the wound of a faithful husband, betrayed by the bride he loved. The prophets say it plainly. The Lord is the husband. Israel is the wandering wife. His anger was not cold. It was jealous love. The jealousy of God who will not lose the ones he made. He was not angry that they chose a greater rival. He was angry that they traded living water for a broken cup. Even the exile, the great judgment, was not the end. It was discipline, the kind a father gives his children. He refuses to lose. His anger was never about losing a contest. It was always about winning back a heart. Now the third question. Did Asherah shape the other goddesses? People often blur them all together, one great mother goddess. But the ancient world was more precise than that. Asherah ruled the sea and the tree. She was the mother, stable, nursing, calm. But there was another kind of goddess, a very different kind, Ishtar in Mesopotamia, Astarte in Phoenicia. These were star goddesses, fierce, armed, and riding lions into war. Their light was the planet Venus, the bright star at dawn and dusk. They ruled love and battle and desire, not the quiet tree. The Bible knows this other cult, too. The prophet Jeremiah condemns the Queen of Heaven. Families bake small cakes for her. They pour out offerings to the stars. That worship points to Venus, to Ishtar and Astarte, not to Asherah. Her world was the soil, not the sky. So did one goddess influence the others? They grew from the same ancient family. They borrowed. They blurred. Over centuries, the names crossed and mixed. But in their own time, they were not the same. Asherah was the tree and the sea. The Venus goddesses were the star and the sword. The Bible sometimes lumps them under one word of scorn. Because to the prophets, the real issue was never which idol. It was that any idol had taken the place of God. And yet, that sacred tree did not simply vanish. Watch where it goes. In the temple stood a lamp of gold, the menorah, a shaft, branches, almond blossoms worked in the gold. It was a tree of light, burning in the house of God. In the book of Proverbs, wisdom is called a tree of life. Hold her fast, it says, and live. Do you see what happened? The hunger people brought to the goddess was real, the longing for life, nearness, for a love that holds you. God did not answer that hunger with a goddess by his side. He answered it with himself. The tree of life was never hers to give. It was always his. So the desert jar still speaks, not of a wife for God, but of a people, like us, who wanted him close. We still reach for what we can hold. We still carry charms against the dark, and the old call still stands. The Lord is one, and he is near, nearer than a tree, nearer than a figure of clay. He never asked Israel to hold a symbol. He asked them to hold on to him. From the next episode, we will learn about ancient Israel's traditions, such as Goel, Kosher, and Torah. In Goel's episode, we will see the traditional Goel and how that custom plays out in the story of Boaz and Ruth.